record on my computer for right now. I like that better. I haven't tried Stan's cloud yet. I've heard it's a little glitchy. Okay, so let me share my screen, and I'm glad you're all chatty. And let me tell you, Friday nights, I know it's a crazy time. It's a crazy time to be here. Normally, it's even crazier when we have families and other things like that during COVID time. So I will not waste your time. It'll be awesome and fun, and you'll walk away from this class knowing some good stuff, especially if you're going to be like future teachers or anything like that. And if you're not a future teacher, you're going to walk away being a much better informed citizen, so you can make good decisions and well-informed choice or well-informed decisions based on all different sorts of choices and things. All righty. So with that being said, let me share my screen. That's what I was trying to do. Let me go up here to the top. Oh no, I forgot to change that to spring 2022, didn't I? Changed everything else, but not that one. All righty. Whew, that would have been bad. So let me show you what we're doing here. So welcome. This is Introduction to Earth Science. If hopefully you're in the right place. I mean, you're in the right Zoom in the Canvas. So it's not like the olden days where you show up to the wrong lecture hall or something and have a hard time of it. But this is Introduction to Earth Science. It's going to be great. I can't believe it's already spring 2022. Just zooming along here. So here's what we're going to try to accomplish this week. All right. We're going to try to accomplish some norms and introductions. So basically, you know, how everything functions. And don't worry, it's not like everybody telling each other what you do or anything. We'll talk about the class information for the semester. We'll collaboratively explore the nature of science. So you'll see one of the big things we like doing in here is a lot of small group activities, which then go out into whole group activities. So collaboration's a pretty big key here. You'll see, we'll set it up nicely so everyone will be successful and make a really productive work environment, I think, for everybody here. All right, I'll give you some instructions on sketch notes and what in the heck those are, but I'll give you a heads up right now that these sketch notes are basically in lieu of tests. So there's no like multiple choice tests or anything like that. We spend each week giving you lots of information to kind of digest and process and turn into me through what we call sketch notes. And what's cool about that is it lets me see exactly what you know and don't have to worry about the pressures and the time crunches of everything, you know, with a final exam, or not a final exam, but just even weekly exams. But it also allows me to give feedback on a lot of your information and a lot of your work. And you can take that feedback and basically revamp and revise. And if you missed a few things, you know, you can improve your learning and get that full credit back. So I'll give you some information about that. It's kind of cool, I think. And then at the end, we'll do our sunshines and blues, which is your way of leaving kind of immediate feedback for the class. So if anything needs to be a little bit better down the road, we can immediately address it. It's an anonymous thing, but that's where we're headed. All right. So, oops, sorry, somebody. Oh yeah, feel free. Asking them for a meeting passcode. If there's a passcode for Zoom, let me see here. Somebody's trying to get in, so let me share a passcode that should automatically jump in from Canvas. So that's interesting. Give me one quick second. And so somebody's trying to get into Zoom and I'm trying to get them a link here. So one moment. All right. So since y'all are in the class, here, I'll send them that code and then maybe they can text that code or something to their friend and then they can get in. But it's all be recorded. So like if something like this happens, you can always come back on and figure it out or see some different things, but we haven't missed much yet. All right, so here we go. Some of the things that we like to practice in this class. And by the way, one of the other things I want to make mention here is most of the photos and things that you see in this class And if I hadn't said so, I'm Ryan Hollister, by the way, and I'll introduce myself a little bit more later on. But yeah, that's me. But one of the things I love is photography, and using photography, and whether it's static one-dimensional image, or computer screen image, or virtual reality type stuff. I love photos. So most everything we see in this class, for the most part, are going to be pictures that I've tried to take, unless it's like a breaking news type scenario here or anything. But with this class, more voices provide a rich experience. So that's one thing we're going to accomplish right away here. And we'll see in just a few minutes that if everybody has a voice, we're going to learn a lot more from everybody, and it's going to make things really cool. And the next one is just kind of be an active learner. So I know you're on Zoom. I know you got other things, there's other distractions and families, and that stuff happens. But do your best to hang in there. And especially when we're in the small groups, try to participate very well in those small groups. That's what we're looking for. And then use this technology and learning mode, I think is the best way of saying it. So I know you guys I trust you to do the right thing. Let's just put it that way. And then when we do get in our small groups, let's debate ideas with evidence and not the people, right? So I'll give you examples of that when we get into some of our small group discussions. But try not to be, well, not try, but don't do any personal attacks on anybody. We want to debate the ideas they're talking about, like, oh, that's an interesting idea, but here's why I disagree, things like that. Just be civil and awesome, and life will be good. All right. Please respect each other's differences. It's how we learn. Seriously, it's one of the really big ones of how we learn. And then I don't hardly ever put anybody on the spot, but like if you feel like you're put on the spot ever, you can always pass if you don't feel like you're comfortable with answering anything. But I rarely ever do that. Sometimes when we're in person, though, I may be asking questions, and you can always say, oh, I don't know, I need to think about that or something. And then also, we will take short breaks in this class here, but do yourself a favor, and if you need to, take some bio breaks, and take care of your needs. You're grown up, so that's what we can do. So, oops, sorry, somebody just came in. There we go. So let me tell you a little bit about myself, and then what y'all are going to be doing is taking some slides, and you're going to kind of tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll go through and make some comments on the slides. And it's a way of not only introducing yourselves, but just getting comfortable with some of the basic technology we're going to be using the first couple of weeks. And we'll go from there. All right. So basically, this is me. I was born and raised in Turlock, so I'm kind of a local guy. I actually got my teaching credential at Stanislaus State. I didn't go there for undergrad, but I got my credential there. And I really love adventuring with my family. As you can see at left, my wife, she teaches at Pittman. She's also a geoscientist, and she's doing great things over there. And we have a almost 9-year-old son. My son will be 9 in a couple of weeks, and he's nuts and awesome. And we like to go explore different places with him all the time. But before I taught at Stan State and MJC, I taught for 15 years at Turlock High School. The geosciences built a lot of programs and stuff there, a couple of AP classes and things. And then I spent 3 years as a curriculum designer and a science coach within the district, and had the opportunity this year to kind of jump over full time at Stan State and MJC here. So that's what I'm doing. And hopefully what you'll notice is I'll be bringing to you a lot of, best practices and good pedagogy, especially I know there's not everyone in here is a teaching major, but I know there's a ton of teaching majors or child developments or things like that. So every once in a while, you may see me kind of put on a teacher hat and give you some tips and tricks as we move forward with this class to do some really good things. So this class is designed specifically to be engaging and interactive and make it cool. And hopefully you'll take some of these lessons by the end of this class and the end of this year and this semester, and not just the content of the science, but take some of the ways we've implemented it and maybe use it in your life in the future here. All righty. So, I won a few awards, I've designed a few things, but really kind of the big thing that I love doing is virtual reality. I like making a lot of three-dimensional objects come to life for you guys to use in virtual field trips, especially since we haven't been able to go places. And, there's lots of different definitions for virtual field trips and things, but mine are pretty immersive and pretty awesome. So you'll see some of those later on. And I don't mean that in a braggadocious way. I mean, it is pretty neat, and I think you guys will enjoy it. But I just want to say that I hope everyone is going to do what they need to help end this pandemic, and hopefully we can come back. And I hope you all stay safe and feel healthy as much as you can. But I know, with the catchiness of Omicron right now, it's going around so bad. I'm flexible. I'm here for you, and I'll explain more about that in the attendance portion later on. But we're just here to get through it together and have a good time, I hope, while doing it. And so I'm going to do everything I can to help you in your journey in this class. So always feel free to reach out to me. Oh, I will say this right up front. I prefer if you communicate with me via the Canvas inbox, that's where I'll see your information first. That's what brings it to the top, and I can definitely communicate there. Being split on 2 different campuses means I have twice the stinking email. So if you use the Canvas one, it'll pop up, and that's the important stuff to me, is your emails, not necessarily all of the other what do you call it, administrative emails and things like that. Okay, so here's what's going to happen. I'm going to copy this link. I'm going to paste this link into your, sorry. I'm going to paste this link into here, and I think if you click on this link, it should open a Google Slides show here for you. And let me make sure. I think I made it so everybody can edit. I got to double check. Yep. Okay, everybody can edit this. And so basically what you're going to do is just claim one of these slides. There's a bajillion of them. I think I have 30. Maybe I need to make a couple more. There we go. Now we have a couple more. You're just going to grab one of these slides and just share a small bit about yourself to help us build a small sense of community. So we'll spend 7 or 8 minutes doing this, so you guys can tell us about yourselves. You can add pictures, you can do whatever you want, add a background to it, whatever floats your boat with that. But just take that unnamed slide, and there's some example starters here, like what year you are, what's your major. Anything that's cool and appropriate, you feel free to share. You don't have to share very much if you don't want to. But that's what we're going to spend the first 6 or 7 minutes doing. And then when we're done with that, we'll come back through and I'll show you how to use comments and make comments on people's stuff so that you can see who's in our class and start making some connections for the small groups that we have. So you just need to snag one of these. You can, edit, type. If you've never used Google Slides before, I'm not judging or anything, but I'll just show you. You can just highlight this and type in your name. You can type in everything that you want to about that on there. You want to add bullets or numbers, you can do that up here. If you want to add a picture, you can click Insert Image up in the top left, and you can either do it by something that's from your computer, or if you want to copy and paste a website image or something like that, you can totally do that. So let's spend about 6 or 7 minutes. Feel free to adjust it and make it your own. And this helps me learn who you are. Hopefully, but if we do get to see each other in person this semester, oh yeah, I remember. And it not only does it help me learn who you are, but it helps me have better things to connect with you, right? In terms of, oh, you're familiar with this, so here, let me make a connection to the earth sciences, to this one thing that you're familiar with, all right? And I think it'll make it a little bit more of a personal class. So I will zip my mouth here, and let's spend I can't add 4:45. Let's go to like 4:56 or so, somewhere in that neighborhood. Let's do 10 minutes and see where everybody's at in 10 minutes. And that may be a little too long, but we'll see. All right. So let's do about 10 minutes, and then I'll show you the next set of instructions after 10 minutes, and we'll go from there. All right. So I'll mute myself, and oh, and I forgot, if you have any questions, feel free to interject at any time. I don't take offense. You can, usually you can put it in the chat, or if I miss something in the chat, feel free to unmute and a reaction, whatever, and stop me in my tracks. Sometimes I get going, I get excited, and I lose attention to some of the chat and things. So oh, we just learned the apply background to all. It happens. Don't worry about it. You can undo it, or other people can go back and fix it manually if they need to. So
Oh, that's me. Sorry.
it
It was weird. I went to theme and then I thought I was doing my own, and then I ended up changing everybody. So
yeah, I think there's like one that says like apply to one slide, or don't worry, it happens every single class, and it's kind of a funny thing to see. So it's the battle of the backgrounds. There we go. All right, no worries. So you have about 4 or 5 minutes left here if you want to add pictures or whatever. You don't have to. I'm just saying, but All right, so let's kind of take next 2 minutes and just finish up our final thoughts here. And you are more than welcome to revisit this if you want to spiff it up for future reference or anything like that. But just about 2 more minutes here. All righty, so my noisy, silly printer is done making noise. So now I can explain the next part here. So, oops, let me see over here. And let me go back to view. Oops, what the heck? Let me reload this. So what you can do now here is, I'm sure I'm muted. All right, good. You'll notice on the left-hand side, there's all the folks' slides, all the different people in here. So I would like you to do now is, after everyone is, we're done, right? So we're gonna have about 5 minutes here to leave a positive comment on at least 2 other slides, but there's a caveat. The first slide you leave a comment on has to have no comments on it yet, all right? And so the way you leave comments is like, let's say here's a blank one. So this is really interesting about a few things about you, person. So the way you leave a comment is you can just click on it and then right click and click comment. And you can do it like that, or you can highlight a specific word or a set of words and right click and then comment. Or there's also the comment thing up there, but for the most part, right click will do that. And then you can leave your comment like, oh, nice to meet you. I also love The Witcher, or whatever show you guys were watching, and you just click on that, and hopefully you find something in common with a couple people here. So the first one you leave a comment on has to have nobody else, and the idea here is hopefully everybody walks away with a couple. And don't be afraid to scroll all the way down and in the middle and see different things here. All righty. So let's take another 5 or 6 minutes, just leave a couple comments here, see who's there, and then we'll also have this to reference throughout the year. If you're like trying to remember, oh yeah, who was I working with in my group? Oh yeah, that person. And you might be able to find some commonalities here. All righty, so let's say it's 4:57. Let's go to like 5:03 or something like that, and add some comments. And then I'll go through and read some too. All right.
Hi, Professor. I'm sorry. How do we comment again?
Let me unmute, then I can tell you. So if you like Leticia here, if you wanted to comment something about enjoy spending time with people she loves, like, oh, I like that too, or whatever. So you just highlight the words that you want to leave a comment on, and then right click, and you should see the little comment thing pop up right there, and then you can type in your comments off to the side and hit comment, and it will stay on there like a little tag note, basically.
Oops. Okay.
Is it coming up for you?
No, I'm having some problems.
Oh no. Okay. How about
I think I erased. I was going on Denise's
another.
slideshow, and then I ended up erasing one of her.
Oh no. Well, another way of doing it, if you don't want to do the right click, is if you go up to insert. So like if you see my cursor here, if you go up to insert in the top menu here, and then go down, the comment is right there. Or I guess you can do Control Alt M as well, depending on if you're on a.
Oh yeah. Okay. That was a lot easier.
All right. All right.
Quick question. I just want to know, is it the thing that you deleted? Was that the Giants thing? Because I could just add that real quick.
Oh, did I deleted something?
No.
Oh
To-
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Sorry.
All right. No problem.
Highlight that.
Are there Dodger fans deleting Giant fan stuff? Is it where we're at already?
No.
I hope not.
This is firmly a Giants class, 100%. I will not grade you down if you're a Dodgers fan, but you always be in the back of my mind. That was such a crazy season last season, man. Oh man.
It was. I really thought they were gonna beat the Dodgers that last game. I was in LA too when it was happening. It was crazy.
Well, guess this weekend we have another San Francisco LA rivalry championship decided as well. So although I'm doing my best to give up football. I mean, just kind of more philosophically opposed to some of those things as I get older, but old habits die hard, I guess.
Yeah, I can't wait for this weekend. I can't wait to watch both games.
Yeah. I don't know how it's going to be last weekend's, but alrighty. So I think most everybody has some comments on there. I see, and just another heads up, if you ever want to see like comments, like who has what, there's those little comment buttons on the left-hand side, or like not buttons. What do you call it? Text boxes, text bubbles kind of pop up to show how many comments have been left on each one. So don't feel lonely if you only have one or anything like that. We'll go through. We just kind of short on time a little bit for this part, but it helps me get to know. I've seen pictures of people in like Bryce Canyon and hiking and all that other kind of good stuff. So that's awesome. And I've only got about halfway through. So I look forward to learning a little bit about y'all and hopefully making some better connections to your life with the content that we have in here. And then the other thing I want to mention in the comments, I dropped a link in the comments because I forgot to mention it at the beginning. It just kind of came across my inbox today. But in the surrounding valley area here, we have what's called the Motherlode Mineral Society. And they are a group of folks that are kind of amateur rock hounds. And there's a few professional geologists and stuff in them, but people that like to go and collect rocks, and they put on the Gem and Mineral Show at the fairgrounds in Turlock every spring. And so they sent an email and said, hey, they have scholarships available for Stan State, MJC, and Columbia College students here that you can apply to. And if you go to that link that I put in the text box, there's a PDF scholarship application version of this, but it's like $750 or $500. And you can, it says majoring in geology or anything like that. But if you say you're going to be majoring in teaching and teaching the earth sciences and stuff like that, that is very much a way of, trying to, let's apply for free money here. And who doesn't like free money? And they're really cool people, and the show they put on is really great. And I like that they're trying to reach out and broaden and diversify their membership. It's been a long time coming, and had previously been a lot of, just retired folks, I guess is an easy way of putting it. But now there's younger blood coming into this. I'm not a part of it, but I just thought the scholarship was cool, and I'd pass it around. And they're trying to do good in the community and encourage you all to do this kind of stuff. Because I saw a few people were saying, oh, I want to maybe work in like a national park or, something like that. That would definitely apply. So cool beans. So there you go. And let me get back to where we're going at here. So here's what I'd like to do. It's 5:06. Yeah. So what we're going to do is I'm going to kind of just now give you a brief overview of the class and what we're going to do. This shouldn't take too long. Then we'll take a quick break. All right. And then after we come back from our break, we'll get into some of our first small group breakouts. I'll show you how to use a few new tools. Maybe you've used like Google Jamboard. So we're going to be using lots of interactive, immersive things, both in person and online. Sometimes the online is a little bit easier because you don't have to print out things and bring in all the markers and stuff, but it can be really fun in person to be able to see this. So I'll be interested to see how this goes over the year as we kind of merge from one version to the next. So what is this class? Why are you here, right? Well, this is designed to be kind of an active and collaborative exploration of how our amazing planet functions, right? There's going to be a few modifications for distance learning, obviously, and modifications will go back. But the whole idea here is that we are going to be focusing on kind of California-centric or, relevant to the Central Valley issues. And we'll learn some of the big basics, the underlying things that make the geosciences go and how those affect us here. So even in the Eastern Sierras, these mountains that are 100 miles to our east or so, they still have a direct impact on our lives in the Central Valley, whether it be trapping air pollution and creating different weather patterns, or allowing runoff to make our rivers and bringing sediments into the valley. I mean, there's just so many different things that, once you take this class, you'll be able to look at pictures like this and just see so many different interactions within the system. And that's the goal here. And hopefully too, if we'll be highlighting the application of the societal value of the geosciences. So, not just knowing this for knowing's sake, right? We want to be able to use this and apply it. And hopefully the stuff you learn in here will make us a more sustainable society, especially in Central California. All right. That's the main goal here, is walking away feeling like I have the tools in my tool belt to make wise decisions moving forward, not only for my generation, but for future generations, your future generations and things like that. So that's kind of one of the big things here. And then, it'll also act, like I was telling you earlier, kind of as this initial exposure to pedagogical techniques that if you're going to be the future teacher, you can use that to facilitate in your own science classes. And this is definitely by no means, this is not a science methods course that you will take in a credentialing program or something like that. But this is the stuff they will eventually be teaching you. And so now you'll get a jump start on it. And hopefully by the time you leave this class, this is how you want all your classes to take to run. That's my goal here. Okay. Oh, crud. I forgot to change these dates on this slide, but it's changed on the syllabus and it's online, and I'll show you all that stuff. But basically, this is kind of all the different things that we'll be talking about here. So geologic time, rocks and their stories, plate tectonics, volcanoes, earthquakes, weathering and mass movements, so landslides, rivers and groundwater, That's a very important one for us, right? Especially in drought. We'll talk about glacier and desert landforms that are pretty amazing. We'll look at the atmosphere and weather and oceans and climate change and carbon cycling and all that other good stuff. And spring break, I don't, it's like the March 20, what is that? Spring break is like March 28th through the whatever, but on the actual syllabus, the actual dates are on there and they're correct. Okay, so piece of cake here. Oh, where'd it go? I was gonna change that. Here, hold on. Let me just go to this one on here. Syllabus. All right, so yeah, here's the basic rundown of all these. And look at this. I changed them to 2021 instead of 2022 because I forgot it's a new year already. Super smart of me, or at least I didn't change the rest of the 21s to 22s, but you get the idea. This is where it's at. All right. And then also I've kind of changed, I've updated the grading just a little bit here. So the sketch notes are basically going to be about 85% of the class. So what you saw in the slides, or what I skipped through very quickly, is basically just me merging all these things into one bit here. So the sketch notes will be about 85% of the class. The virtual trips will be about 15%, or will be 15% at the end. And everybody should do great. And you'll be successful because I'm going to give you everything you need to have to be successful. And it should be pretty awesome, I think. All righty. So that leads me then to the attendance portion of things. And you know, it's a pandemic, obviously, but here's the one thing I want to just kind of hopefully make very clear here is you guys never owe me personal information about your health or anything else, you know, unless you want to divulge something that I can help you with, that's totally fine. So you're always welcome to talk to me about things that you're going through. If I can't help you directly, I'll try my best to help find somebody that can provide help, whether it be technical support or, you know, emotional support or, you know, just whatever you need. So if you need extra help, you need to miss class, you need more time with something, just ask. You don't have to give me a reason why I don't need it. You know, I don't need a reason. Just say I'm going to be gone if you can, and that'll help me plan for, you know, who to expect and how much stuff to bring to class for some of the things that we do. So that's kind of the big thing here. And I expect 100% with COVID going around. I mean, you know, if family members get sick, you might get sick. Attendance is highly recommended. I do not grade on attendance. I fully expect you to, you know, hopefully if you feel better when you get back, to make up the things that we do, especially with the sketch notes and things. But you know, I'm flexible. I think that's the takeaway. That's the takeaway statement here. And I'm willing to work with you. And I try to be as empathetic as I possibly can. I mean, my son, he got COVID the very first week of school back. It was the first week in MJC as well. And, you know, we'd worked 2.5 years so hard to prevent him from getting it. And it happened, but somehow we managed to avoid getting it at home because, you know, we isolated and did all the other stuff, and maybe our vaccinations also prevented against it. But it threw a huge wrench in the works and made things, you know, just that was taking care of him was the big thing. And so I know that happens with you and taking care of yourself and your family and whatever. So I'm here for you. All right. We'll just talk, we'll work it out, and we'll find a solution if you need to. Okay. So basically, what are these assignments going to look like? And I'll show you some other examples here in just a minute. But for the most part, we're going to be doing a lot of synchronous, I call them labtivities, even though it's not an official lab. I do teach a physical geology lab and a historical geology lab this semester too. And those will be more traditional kind of labs, but you know, who wants to sit in Zoom for 3 hours and do boring stuff? So we do a lot of individual, or not individual, but a lot of small group conversation and work, trying to make some sense out of a lot of different cool things. So that's one of the things that we'll be doing. We'll have a lot of discussion from small group. bring it out to the whole group or the whole class where you'll share ideas and hopefully we'll learn from each other's big ideas there. The sketch notes, I'll show you, these are kind of a preview of, and believe it or not, these are like high school sketch notes right here from folks that were in high school when they did it. But the idea with this is that, you know, it's a way to depict everything that we've talked about and everything that we've learned in class in a unique way that kind of models your understanding of what's going on. And I'll show you different examples of how to do it and what you need to be on there. And don't worry, each week I give you a template of like, hey, here's the concepts that we talked about in class. Here's the stuff that you need to put on your sketch notes. Here's the things that you need to show me that you know, and you'll be good. And I have a rubric for you so you can like double check the rubric and make sure you got everything. And, you know, one other thing that takes a lot of time for me in this class is looking at these, going over them, grading them, and leaving a few comments. So if there's a few things that are lacking or you missed something, you know, it's like, oh, hey, here, did you think about this? Go back, fix it up, resubmit it, and you can get the full credit for that. So I'll talk more about that a little bit later, but we'll go from there. Maybe this one's of interest to you. There's no textbook here, right? There's no textbooks. There will be, all right, readings sometimes at the conclusion of class to help basically reinforce all of the things that we've learned about in class each day. So, and it could help you out with some of the things for your sketch notes, perhaps. But it's all meant to be reinforcement material. I like coming to class, letting you guys try to figure things out, setting you up. It's not just like, hey, go figure this out and then we'll come back and talk about it. I'll set you up of how, you know, within a framework of how to figure out some of these different things and talk about them. And then we'll use those readings at the end of them to reinforce our learning. And all of that's going to be free, open access, you know, online type stuff. And free is better. I'm a huge advocate for open access stuff. So that's what we'll try to do. And by the way, this, I haven't been mentioning the pictures, but the reason this is from like 2-3 years ago before the pandemic started, it's outside of San Luis Obispo and the Coast Range. But this is where the San Andreas Fault cuts right through this valley right here. And that's why there's the little mountains that kind of popped up. And that's why this road is so wobbly, is because the grinding of the fault makes the soils there very ground up and unstable, and they don't support very well. And things collapse over time, which is kind of cool. All righty. So every once in a while, we'll see how it goes once we get back into person, but we might have like some of these reinforcement activities that will be put onto your sketch notes. So, you know, don't freak out about them too much or anything like that. And then the last project of the year, so we don't have a final. We'll meet during the finals time, and we'll have a lightning project or a lightning presentation, basically, of a virtual field trip project that you're going to be making. So you're going to learn how to use Google Earth Web and how to make a fun and super engaging and academically rigorous kind of earth science virtual field trip. So I'll tell you how to do this. I'll show you how to do it. I'll show you how to make it engaging for students with what we call the next generation science standards that if you're going to be a teacher, you need to know about these because that's how science is going to be taught. And basically you'll be making those, and at the end, the last final bit here, you guys will be presenting it to folks in your small group and getting feedback. But don't worry, we'll be working on it for like a month in advance, like giving feedback to one another and things like that. So it's not just I don't know if I did it right and my whole grade is resting on it. No, the whole thing is about feedback and building it and making it great for you no matter what. All right, so it'll be interesting. We'll cover more of that when we get there, but it's pretty fun. And, you know, especially in the Central Valley where field trip budgets and things are often hamstrung, and we don't have, you know, COVID now too, can't go on field trips. Making these virtual field trips are ways to get our students seeing things that are nearby and hopefully inspire them to get their parents to go with them and explore some of these places. Right. So the last thing I'll make mention here of before we go on this little break is the sketch note template and how to make your first sketch notes. Now, in the past, I had, made these on a Google Slides, and everybody would turn in their own Google Slides and things. But last semester, folks said, hey, just put these in the Canvas assignments so that it's an easier reminder of things to turn in, and it doesn't go by the wayside. So that's what we'll be doing. So if you go into the modules section of Canvas here, let me go on to student view so y'all can see this. Hopefully this is what it'll look like, right? Here's week 1, and everything else will be organized in these different weekly modules here. Today's lecture slides are right here. All right. The introduction slides that you guys did, the getting to know you, those are these. And then if you click on the sketch notes, this is kind of the first assignment here. And so it says, well, what are these sketch notes? Well, the sketch notes basically are a way to show me that what you know, right? But using color, picture, and text. So that's the goal here, is trying to use color, picture, and text. And by the way, if you have any, needs where something like this doesn't necessarily 100% work for you, let me know, and we'll work with alternative ways of doing this. But this is cognitively been shown that people who do these sketch notes are much more likely, or not likely, but they do retain the information much longer and much better. It's a deeper understanding, it's a deeper learning, as opposed to just cramming for a multiple choice test and then everybody forgets everything, right? And so by doing this too and taking pictures, you'll have digital copies of this. So even if you forget later on about where you stash the papers, if you ever go any place and wonder how things are made, rocks, Yosemite, whatever, you'll have a good paper trail to help you out in your future here. And so basically the way this is going to work is, let me go back to this. Sorry here. Each week, I will give you a template that looks like this. And so this week, our big idea that we're going to be talking about after break here is, what is the nature of science and how does it help us understand earth sciences? And so you'll see there's all these different topics. Like we're going to be doing kind of a small group cartoon ordering activity. And then we're going to do a share out with that. We'll talk about it as a whole class about what was the purpose of all these things. Then we'll take a veer into looking at data and prior knowledges and inferences and how that affects our understanding of science. And then the last 3 over here are kind of your own interpretations and your own understandings of what in the heck we talked about. So it does not have to be in, like, you don't have to organize it and arrange it the way I did. This just happens to be how it fit and how it kind of made a chronological flow for me. But what you guys are going to be doing is on your own pieces of blank paper, trying to find the right tab here, on your own pieces of blank paper, you're going to be drawing these things and adding text to it, drawing little pictures of things that stuck out to you and adding text to it that is descriptive. And that's what I tried to highlight up here, is it's descriptive text. So it can include titles or ideas or data or questions or explanations. It's things that if you handed your paper to somebody else, they wouldn't go, what in the heck were they trying to demonstrate here? It would be like, oh, they were talking about, this plate tectonics thing or something. And I totally see how these interact with one another. So that's what these are meant to do. All right. And these are kind of examples from a couple of years ago from a very similar template for the sketch notes about what people did. And so some people, if you're not into the hand drawing on like paper, digital ink is totally fine. So some people I know have tablets or fancy schmancy computers and Apples and iPads and things that can draw right on there. And if you want to do that, that totally works as well. All right. So each week you're just going to be basically turning this template, these ideas here, into pictures and quick little descriptions based on the things we did that night. And it'll help you think about it. It'll help you reflect on these different things. And then all you got to do is, when you're done with that, you'll see, oh, where'd it go? Oh, maybe it's because I'm in student view. Why does it say next? No, got it. That was the other one. So let me go back to here. well, it's an assignment. So you'll be able to turn in your assignment here, and I might need to, I don't know why it's not turned on yet. Anyways, I'll figure it out. But basically, when you're done doing this, all you need to do is submit the picture. Just take a picture of your sketch notes and you'll submit it right up here on the top. There'll be a submit button, and you can submit as many pages as you want. So, you don't have to fit it all on one page. If you draw on like 5 different pages, just take a picture of those 5 things and upload them. And that'll help me. And I'll leave comments on them on Canvas. They may not be the best punctuated comments because I like doing the talking to text on those comments. And, it's just a faster way to go through it. But basically, you'll do those, all right? You'll do the color picture text. You'll turn them in based on those templates. And then if you're wondering like, oh, how do I get full points on these? Well, here's how. There's a sketchnote template or rubric, I should say here, that kind of tells you how you can score. There's 3 different categories. The highest you can get is a 4 in each category. So the highest you can get each week is 12 points on this. And I'll just go through and say like 4, 3, 3 or something like that, whatever you got for each one of these different categories. But for the demonstrates good overall use of colors, picture, and text, if the layout is clean and it's easy to read, you'll get a 4. If you use everything appropriately, that's how you get your 4 right there. All right. To get a 4 for all of the topics in the template are addressed. Basically, you just go through and you take a look at all these template things. You included all of them. It's described with enough detail to demonstrate understanding. Diagrams have labels and describe what the diagrams are showing. Pictures are mostly sketched on paper or digitally drawn, things like that. So basically, what I'm trying to prevent is people just copying and pasting, just images off the internet or anything. We want you to draw and work in process with this. All right. You can totally use them for inspiration, but just don't copy and paste them. And then let's see here, the extension questions. So these will also be usually included on the sketch notes, and tonight's kind of extension-y type questions will be like these ones over here off to there. And I'll grade you on those, and I'll leave comments. And if something's missing or you don't get a 4, I'll tell you what you need to do to improve that thing, and you can fix it and resubmit it. And here's the deal. Going back to COVID stuff here, right? Going back to COVID stuff is, let me leave student view. Let me see. Going back to COVID stuff, what I want to say is I will open these up and leave them open for 4 weeks, right? So basically you have 4 weeks to turn these in without penalty or anything like that. So if you miss a class, you can watch a recording or come back in or something like that. If you miss a class when we're in person, I have recordings from the previous semesters of very similar things. So you'll be able to get an idea of what's going on there. But ideally, this should be done before the next class, right? You want to do it 1 every week. That's the idea here. But if you have to miss or have something like that, you don't have to freak out. You have another, 3 or 4 weeks. And the earlier you get them turned in, the more able I am to grade them faster and give you more chance for to correct yourselves, based on the feedback and things like that. So that's how this goes. And when we get into our break, I'll fix this so you can see how to submit it up there. All right. But it's a pretty flexible thing. It should show up. It'll show up on your assignments. It'll show up on the module, and then just every week you'll go through to here and turn it in, and it'll be a piece of cake. So that's the majority of your grade here, is applying all the stuff we did in class to putting everything into here, showing me that you learned about it, and you're good to go. Now, remember, this might take an extra hour a week or whatever to draw this and do these things, but we don't have any tests, and it allows us to cover more material. And I think it's a much more purposeful thing. And hopefully you'll see I don't want to waste your time, even though I've been talking a lot here the last few minutes. All right. So with that being said, I gave you, here's some other kind of the low res versions. I didn't want to give you such high res versions because you'll be looking at very similar things, but this kind of gives you an idea. You don't have to be a Picasso. I'm not grading on artistic abilities. I'm grading on your ability to, show me what you know. And there's lots of different ways that that looks, but as long as it has color, picture, and text, and descriptive text, that's what we need. If you need to organize it differently than the way I have it laid out, totally fine. You know, it's what works best for your mind. Okay. So let's do this. Let's take a quick break. It's 5:30 or so. Let's actually, instead of a 5-minute break, let's take like a 7-minute break for right now. All right, go stretch, go get a drink of water, go get a snack or whatever you need to do. And let's come back at about 5:37 or so. And once we do that, we'll get into some of our different breakout groups and do some other fun things and start the class and have fun and all that good stuff. All right. So see you in about 7 minutes. I'm going to mute myself and turn off my screen really quick. And I'll see you in a few. I'll see you at 5:37. Alrighty. This is also the first part of the year for me where two 3-hour, 3.5 hour class MJC, but so 6 hours of lecturing and stuff. My voice is going a little bit here. So bear with me if it goes in and out. It'll get stronger as the year goes on. Alrighty. So let's start talking then about a few other interesting things. So we're going to talk about the nature of science. Oops, tongue on it. We're going to talk about the nature of science now, and have some fun little activities that we're going to be doing that, well, they're going to be perspective building, I think. And I'll give you the basic setup of what we're going to be doing here in just a few minutes, but I want to give you a kind of a precursor or something to think about that I think really describes the geosciences and geology and the earth sciences pretty well here about what we try to do. Alrighty, so this is from Michael Crichton's The Lost World. So if you're Jurassic Park fans or anything like that, Michael Crichton's the one that wrote those books. This is from The Lost World. So it says, when you think about it, the fossil record is like a series of photographs, frozen moments from what is really a moving, ongoing reality. Looking at the fossil record is like thumbing through a family photo album. You know that the album isn't complete. You know life happens in between. You only have the pictures. So you study them and you study them, and pretty soon you begin to think of the album not as a series of moments, but as reality itself. And so I know a lot of us don't have photo albums anymore, but you definitely have photo rolls on your phones and things, right? Where if you go through and look at somebody's I don't have Instagram, but right, they call them stories on Instagram, Insta stories or something like that. I'm not old. I don't have Facebook branded stuff. Yeah, so those Insta stories or Instagram, right? People tell their whole lives stories by just snippets of images, right? You can piece together what they're doing based on the pictures that they give. And the geosciences and the earth sciences are very much similar here. We try to take clues that the earth provides us, take a look at those clues and pieces of information, and from that try to discern lots of amazing things. And so that's what I'll be able to give to you guys with this class, and especially in the next couple of weeks here, is how to look at things that seem ordinary and learn the extraordinary stories that are kind of trapped inside. So I'm going to be teaching you a new language, basically, of how to read. And we're going to go from reading, letters to words to sentences to full on, paragraphs and stories about how Earth was formed. And so the reason I have these two pictures over here is these are hadrosaurs, so kind of like duck-billed dinosaurs type ones. These ones they're found all over the world in the fossil record. Turns out that California's very first dinosaur fossil that we ever found in California was a hadrosaur, and you'll never guess that it was found in Del Porto Canyon, right over east or west of Patterson, So back in the early 1900s, they found one out there. And dinosaurs are pretty rare in most of California because when dinosaurs were walking the earth back then, much of California didn't exist. We were under the ocean and under the water. But we'll talk about that later on. But the reason I'm showing you this is because here is a hadrosaur nest. So these are hadrosaur eggs, fossilized hadrosaur eggs. With technology we have today, we can also scan these things with X-rays and CT scans and see the actual fossilized like embryos inside the eggs to 100% identify which species of dinosaur they belong to. But what's kind of neat about these hadrosaurs is not only was this one nest site where they found these eggs, but they found nests all over in a certain area, kind of like a big, huge nursery, basically. And they found lots of other dinosaurs that had maybe been, I can't remember with this one, if they were overcome with like a volcanic eruption or a flood or something like that. But basically there was kind of a mass die-off event where the grown-ups, or not the grown-ups, but the adults and the young hadrosaurs, along with the nests, they were all found kind of buried and fossilized in the same area. So just from finding fossils like that, that helps scientists and paleontologists tell the story that, or understand that these dinosaurs were kind of communal and raised communal nurseries, and the young stayed with the adults for quite a long time. And right, and we're making those ideas and knowing these things based on these pieces of evidence that come through. And if you are able to get enough evidence and start piecing it together, your story starts to become more and more and more complex as time goes on. So I think that's kind of an interesting thing. And that's what the geosciences do, is try to find those small pieces of information and start telling really amazing stories about them based on evidence. All right. So what we're about to do now is go into some whole group or small group and whole group discussions amongst your peers here. And I just want to give you a quick little pedagogical background reasoning of why we're doing what we're doing, right? There's a purpose and intent with everything that I try to do in these classes. But if you look at the studies, the folks that actually research the psychology of education and research, science education and what students retain, it shows that like teachers, adults, and, students of all ages, they learn challenging science and skills by looking at evidence, working collaboratively with one another to make sense of their experiences, by deeply exploring kind of their own understandings and misunderstandings. And that's a big thing here, is it's okay if you have a misconception or something in this class. It's okay, because hopefully, you'll see something new, like, oh man, this is what I always thought. Here's how it really is. Interesting. All right, cool. And, we move on with our lives after seeing some of those different things, and it helps us unlock better understandings moving forward. But so in this class, to collaboratively make sense of the science, we'll need to listen to each other's interpretations, ask questions of one another, and things like that. My role here is to help you surface ideas and surface questions and help you articulate what you think and wrestle, with your own kind of confusion and uncertainty. So if that sounds a little vague, don't worry. I generally give you really good instructions of how to, what to expect and what to do here with your groups. So in that vein, here's what's going to happen. In just a few minutes, I'm going to give you a link, and I'm going to put you into randomly placed breakout groups. In your breakout groups, you should, take a minute or two to introduce yourselves to everybody, tell you who you are, or, you don't have to, just names is fine. Pronunciations of names is always a great thing. And please I will always ask for help, because I don't enunciate and pronounce things very well a lot of the time. So definitely help me out with that if I need it. And then you're going to get in your breakout groups, introduce yourselves, and then once in your breakout groups, you're going to open a Jamboard. So I'll give you a link to a Jamboard here in just a second, which looks like this. Oh, where'd it go here? There we go. I have it open twice. No, I don't have it open twice. This is the one I want. I just need to reorganize it. So this is a Jamboard. And basically what a Jamboard is it's very much like a kind of like a generic version of Google Slides. Maybe you've used Jamboard. Hopefully you have. If you haven't, it's a really cool, quick and easy way of doing things. It has its limitations, and you'll see some of those tomorrow or next time we meet. But basically what you'll have on there are, I think there's 15 different, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 14 or 15 different slides here. And your job as a group is going to collaborate and put the cards. So here's the instructions on the left, is going to be collaborate and put the cards in an appropriate storyline order. All right. So you're going to put these in an order that that's the story that you guys know it. All right. That's what you're going to be doing. Then once you organize them, and so you just organize them and move them by just left clicking and dragging, pretty much like anything else. All right. Then you're going to use at least 3, or you're going to use these sticky notes to list at least 3 pieces of evidence on green sticky notes and 2 pieces of prior knowledge you use to formulate your group's story. So let me give you an example. All right. I have kind of example ones down here. The instructions are going to be in pink, but these are supposed to be like Post-it notes, basically, or sticky notes is what they call them in here. And so once you get everything in your order, your group will have a discussion. There's a time limit though, right? You're only going to have about 15 total minutes to do this. So you're going to have to spend the first, 10 minutes or so figuring out what order things need to be in. Then once you're totally fine with the order of everything, then you're going to take these green sticky notes. And the way you add a green sticky note is if you come over to the left-hand side, you click sticky note, and then just make it click on so it's the color green. Then you can type in, here's my reasoning. All right, and I didn't, what do you call that? Do that. Anyway, so when you're done, then you can just click off to the side and you have this sticky note that you can make gigantic, you can make small, you can rotate it and do things like this, however you need to do it. If you want to delete it, you just click on it, hit delete, and it goes away. So after you have your story put together, then you're going to try to put at least 3 green ones on there for evidence that you used in the pictures here to help you order this story. All right, so put some green things on there like, oh, hey, we saw this and that's why we put it here. That's the goal. All right. The orange ones then are going to be used for you to put on anywhere that you used prior knowledge. So one of the things we're going to be talking about is, hey, we all come to the table with a vast amount of knowledge from our lived experiences and our lived life. That's what prior knowledge is. All right. So if you think it goes in a certain order based on something you remember from a kid or whatever, tell us, what are those prior knowledges? And the idea here is we need to put these on the sticky notes so that we can see them because we just need to see them. We need to have it on a paper because eventually we're going to go through and do some other things with those pieces of information. So, sorry, there's a mosquito. What the heck? I have no idea. It's a mosquito. All right. Anyway, sorry. So in this Jamboard, what's kind of cool is if you see up here in the top center, you'll see group 2, group 3. You click on the arrows and that'll get you to different groups. Or if you want to down drop it like this, it'll show you all the other groups on here. My only request for you when you get into your breakout groups and find your group, stay on your own slide. Don't go snooping around other groups. All right, just stay within your own. Don't snoop around anybody else. The first thing you can do once you get in your breakout group is double click on the yellow one on the top right hand side and just edit this and put in your group members' names, and that'll save that and you'll be good to go. All righty. Oh, a couple other things I want to show you with the Jamboard here is if you want to draw some things, they have a pen. And you have like just a normal pen, which is kind of thin like this. So you can draw arrows, you can draw things if you want on there. If that helps you describe what you're trying to show, that's totally fine. And there's the different colors. They have like a thicker pen, like a marker. They have a highlighter version. And then they have a paintbrush, which is kind of a really faint light one. You want to erase those, just get the eraser and it goes away like that. And then I don't know why they have a laser pointer thing. I don't know what that's good for really. They have shapes. So eventually if you ever want to add shapes, that's how you can add shapes on there. And you're not going to be needing to add pictures, but you can do that stuff there too. All right. So that's how you can use these things. Everybody's starting off with the same things, the same stuff. I'll put you in your breakout groups here. So this should be pretty fun. It's totally random. And oh, by the way, science shows that groups of three are the kind of sweet spot of group work of how things are supposed to be done. All right. So there might be one group of 4 just because, we can't split everything into equal groups of 3, but groups of 3 or 4, 3 is ideal, 4 is the next ideal. All right. And I'm going to put you in these breakout groups. You're going to have, I'll put the timer on for 17 minutes. So the first 2 minutes can be introductions. All right. And then the next 10 minutes after that should be putting things in order. And then the next 5 minutes after that is making sure you're getting your evidence down on there on the green sticky notes and your prior knowledge on the orange ones. Oh, and let me make sure everybody's sharing their screen. So, or can share their screen. Let me make sure, hold on. Everyone can share screens. All right, so you're good with that. So when you get in your group, you can have one person share and move around. It's up to you guys how you want to do it. and we'll go from there. All righty. So options, 17 minutes here. And oh, I need to give you the link. Okay, that would be the good thing to do. So let me share the link here with y'all. And then make sure that you guys are all in the Jamboard before I put you in your breakout groups. So if you click on that link, that should pop you up into here. Hopefully I should see things coming. All right. Make sure you guys can edit it. Yep. Okay, good. And so you'll whatever breakout room you're in, you'll just go to that group numbers Jamboard, and you'll go from there and do what you do. And I'll just stay on the outside here. If you need help, you can call me in, and I'll just be here to give you pieces of information of like how much time you have left. Oh, I know. Last other thing, I almost forgot. As you have these conversations at the end, kind of nominate amongst your own selves and your groups of one person to share out a few things. All right. So the things that you might want to be thinking about what we're going to be sharing out are, if I can find the right thing here, is, well, basically you're going to be kind of sharing some early feedback before we do the next steps. So just make sure you have somebody in your group willing to participate, because we're going to go around to each group and have you guys share out. All righty. So here comes the breakout rooms. You guys have the links. It looks like you're on. We're good to go. And have fun. Say hi to one another. And, don't get frustrated is all I have to say. All right. Take it with a grain of salt. And here we go. If y'all need help joining breakout groups, let me know.
I have a question, Professor.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do we have to join whatever group we want, or
Oh, there should be it's a breakout room, so it assigned you like to group 7. Did you see it?
no? It's because my internet keeps on
Okay.
like it's not working so well, so it keeps on like kicking me out and then kicking me back in.
All right, so I'm going to do so don't join yet. Give me a quick second. I'm going to do a quick little trick here. Move you to 6 and then back to 7 here. And then now do you see it pop
Okay.
up? It should say
No.
it should say like join breakout room 7.
Yeah, it's not letting me. It gives me the option to. Oh yeah, there you go. I got it. Thank you.
All right, cool. All right. All right, everybody. Welcome back. Make sure you're all back. Yeah, okay, good. So, how did it go?
It was fun but tricky. We did a lot of moving around and we couldn't decide which one, but it was fun
How come you couldn't decide? What was making it hard to decide?
because we would say one thing, like we'd make up a scenario or like create a story, and then we're like, wait, like we would look at the image like too deep and we would think so much about it, and then we would switch the story. So like we would switch everything every like 10 seconds.
You were looking and finding new evidence in the pictures then that would maybe convince you of how it should be ordered. Is that
Yes.
okay? Interesting. All right. Did anybody else want to share some other experiences thus far?
Not gonna lie, I was very lost because I kept on thinking about different scenarios.
Oh, I didn't catch the first part. I'm sorry. Is that Carlos? I didn't hear the first part.
Yeah, I was lost a little bit.
Oh, and so lost with the instructions or lost of not sure where to put
No,
things?
no, not where like to put it at. I was like thinking about
Ah.
different scenarios, going and connecting with other ones.
All right. So what was from somebody else then, what were some of the conflicting ideas that were rattling around? Was it your own personal conflicts or like conflicts amongst group members? And I don't mean in a mean way, but like conflicts of ideas. What was happening here? What was making it hard to order for some of you?
Well, for me personally, it was kind of a little bit of both because I'm thinking something and then I'm like, wait, that doesn't make sense. And then somebody else from the group was all like, said something and they're like, okay. And then we're like, never mind, doesn't make sense. So we're just, it was just a circle.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Anybody else want to share? Oh, that was Destiny. Thank you. Anybody else would like to share? Like maybe what was a stumbling block or a frustration or something?
A definite part of our group, someone would notice something, like the picture of the grandma kicking the pig,
Oh,
the
yeah.
helmet or whatever he was wearing.
Uh-huh.
And we were like, oh yeah, like he's kicking him out, like she's saying like bye, don't be part of here. And then like Laura was part of the group and she's like, actually she's kicking him inside. And we were like, oh, that messes up the whole story. Like that doesn't even go anymore. So I think it was just like noticing all the little things.
Interesting. All right. Well, I appreciate so far the first thing that you're doing there, right? And so all of those little pieces of information that you're observing are the evidence, right? You're looking at observational evidence, and then you're trying to talk and discuss amongst yourself of the best order, the best way that these make sense based on some of the evidence that you have. So that's the first part. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to put you back in your breakout groups, but just for about 6 or 7 minutes here. All right, not very long. And what you're going to do is, if I can got the wrong tab open. All right, you've already been placed in there. I got to find the right one. We're going to take a break a little bit later on. But I'm going to give you about probably 7 or 8 minutes. And I want you to take those next few minutes to review at least 3 other group storylines by using that frame advance, like I was mentioning to you earlier. So, right, you can move through the frames just like this to find some other groups. So I want you to observe at least 3 other groups that are not your own. Don't edit it, just look at it and talk amongst it, or talk about it amongst your group. So the things I want you to think about and talk about are, what do you notice about the other groups? What questions do you have about those other groups, the way they did it? What do you wonder? And I want you to make a mental note of these ideas, all right? Because these are some of the things we'll be sharing as a whole group, kind of going around from group to group to group here as we go through there, all right? Which is kind of interesting, I think. So I'm gonna put you back in your breakout groups really fast. We'll have a discussion amongst yourselves. We'll come back, we'll have a whole group discussion. I'll give you guys a choice and you'll see what that choice is in a few minutes, and then we'll move on from there. So back in your breakout groups you go, about 7 or 8 minutes. I got to set the timer here. I'll go 8 minutes. Choose at least 3 different groups. If you can do more, you can, But what do you notice? What do you wonder? Think about readability, think about information you're gathering from them. You can think about the order that they have. Anything and everything is acceptable with this notice and wonder. All right. So back to the Jamboards, choose a different group and let's see what you notice and wonder about other groups. So here we go. And let me know if anybody needs help getting back into the breakout groups here. There we go. Now I can talk. I'm unmuted. So welcome back, everybody. So I'd like to kind of just go around now, kind of interesting, right? To see all the different groups and man, it's like none of you were on the same page. I don't understand it. What the heck? So how about this? I'll just kind of go around the room and let's start with group one. In group one, what was one of either a big aha or a takeaway or a notice or an idea that you had after viewing all these things? One, two, three, not it, right?
I can't talk.
All right, thanks.
So we were completely lost in the beginning, but after going back into the groups and looking at other people's, we kind of got it. We just didn't edit it. So we decided to put her in the forest first because I think someone said that's how they remember the story of her being in the forest in the beginning. And
Okay,
then
so
we
sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but were you thinking then that other groups were more right than your group?
yes, definitely.
Interesting. And so what was one of the things that you noticed to make you feel that way?
So like a lot of people started off with them being in the kitchen.
Uh-huh.
And we noticed after that they were baking the cookies first before she went into the forest.
Ah, all right. Interesting idea. So thank you very much. So those are very astute observations and interesting reaction that you guys had. So thank you for sharing. How about group two? And I'm not trying to cut off, I'm just trying to facilitate for expedience of time here. So how about group two? You don't have to necessarily talk about your own, you can talk about other groups or whatever as well. But what were some of the things that you noticed and wondered or, had second thoughts about or whatever you want to talk about?
Okay, I'll be speaking for our group. So we were very passionate about our story. So I'll do like a little rundown. Okay, I'll make it quick because it's kind of long.
All right,
But I'll make it quick.
Quick is good.
So what happened?
Quick is good. Quick is good.
Oh, okay. So they're at grandma's house baking cookies, right? And they are in need of more hands. So then the grandma finds a piggy outside and then she pushes him inside the house. And then so the piggy's inside the house and they are getting ready to put the cookies in the oven. So as we see, the mom is putting the cookies in the oven. And then Miss Little Red Riding Hood is like, okay, I need to go and sell the cookies. So she goes to the forest and then she hears a noise, but she proceeds to follow along. And as she's walking, she sees the three little pigs. And then after that, the three little pigs are, they spot the wolf, but we said that the wolf had like a story, like he already had everything planned. So he sees them and he scares them. And the wolf's plan is for them to cross by grandma's house. So then the grandma's laying in bed and she sees them passing by. But the wolf sets up a trap, and then that's when they see the grandma trapped. And as they are trying to figure out how to help grandma, the wolf takes the opportunity to go inside her house, and now he replaces the grandma, and now he is in her bed.
Interesting.
Because he has her little like sleeping cap.
Oh, that little,
it is a little, yeah.
There, yeah.
So that was our observation.
Interesting. So you had a lot of different ideas there that kind of push those together, lots of different pieces of evidence that you use to piece that together. Yes. And yet, somehow, as good as that sounds, it is very different, or pretty different than some of these other groups. So interesting thoughts. All right. Thank you so much. So how about group number 3? Oh, wait, that was that Melissa? Thank you, Melissa. So how about group number 3? Anybody want to share what's like a big takeaway or aha or something that you agreed with or didn't agree with or evidence or something that you saw that was unusual? Oh, come on, it's not that hard.
One thing we noticed is that it's hard to decide or to basically grasp a story or anything in general if you don't have like context and prior knowledge. So like, or descriptors, because I mean, if you really wanted to, you can put this in any order and you can make up any story to make it work. So like, I think that changes it. And it's, so to me, it's trying to put in multiple stories into one. You can tell that it's just not always going to be the same. I don't know if you've done it before and everyone's was the same, but I'm pretty sure not, just because each person thinks differently and each interactions are going to change this whole, makeup of the story.
Interesting thoughts, and we are going to circle back to some of that definitely a little bit later on as well. But I like how you had some different things. I noticed friendly, so I wanted to ask y'all about group number 3 about the friendly there. I think you maybe were talking about grandma or something like that. So friendly is an inference. So my question to you is, what piece of evidence led you to believe that somebody was friendly? What led you to believe that?
Basically where the grandma is with her family and the pig is invited and they're all basically just kind of there.
Okay, so that the evidence of kind of like being together, smiling, and all those things led us to believe that it was friendly. All right, I appreciate that. Thank you. All right, how about group 4 here? What were some either big ahas? It could be the layout, it can be, the story, other things that you were talking about. So what were some things that you guys were discussing?
So every time we came back to our slide, we basically were thinking of a different scenario that could happen. We then realized, okay, the grandma's pushing the pig in the house. Maybe he's there to help with the cookies, but we had it in the different order. Then we thought, okay, maybe the pigs were supposed to capture the wolf. And then the grandma was captured. We just, every time we came to it, we had different situations in our head, and it was hard to come down to just one order, I guess I would say.
All right. And so, sorry, when you were looking at other groups, did those then influence the way you thought of how you ordered things? Or do you feel like yours was more right than somebody else? How did that make you feel when you're looking at other folks's?
So when we were looking at them, we felt like we were kind of on the same page, as at least with the wolf, like jumping on the flowers and then the cage. But then some of the images of Little Red Riding Hood were in different areas than what our group chose to do. So it was just, I don't know, there's so many different options. Like Nicholas was saying, you could kind of just put it anywhere and it'll tell a different story every time.
All right, I appreciate this. And we may surface some other things coming up with other groups too, but sometimes frustrations have been aired that like, there's 2 different stories, they don't go together, what's going on here, So
I was feeling like that when we were doing it.
Okay. Yeah, and it happens, right? So it's okay. So thank you for sharing. That was Kayla, right? Thank you.
Yes.
And then how about group number 5? What were some of the things that you were noticing? Anything particular you agreed with or disagreed with or had revelations or questions about?
At first we were gonna put the ones when like Little Red Riding Hood is like walking in the forest with the basket, but then we realized that in the other pictures they were actually like barely putting the cookies. So that's when we switched it. And we both have like background knowledge of like the Little Red Riding Hood story, but we never really remembered like the pigs being in the story. So that's where we were like a little confused.
All right.
But we did know like the ending. So that's why we decided to put like where you see the wolf that ate the grandma, because we remember that being an ending. Okay. But yeah, we were a little bit confused on some of the pictures that we didn't really like know what was going on.
Awesome. And so what were the things that helped you, even though you didn't know what was going on for your background knowledge, what were some things that you honed in on to help you organize those pictures?
We were kind of just like trying to connect them with each other. So like when we realized that, oh, like she's putting the cookies in, so that has to come before. And or when we saw, at first we were kind of confused, like with the when the grandma's pushing the pig inside the house.
Uh-huh.
And then we saw another one where she's like tied up. So it was like seeing those different little images where we kind of decided where to like organize them.
All right. Thank you for sharing that evidence of how you organized things. I appreciate that. All righty. And now how about group number 6? Any new things you want to add? I noticed you guys have a unique layout here. Kind of different than everybody else's, which is not a bad thing. It's cool. So what did you guys, what were your takeaways?
Well, one thing like I can possibly say for everything is that for everyone is that I like how each group had its own design story. Not all of us really had the same thing.
All right.
And then not gonna lie, for me, when going through this, I got so confused because I kept on going back to the second slide that we had. I felt like that slide can be put in different like places in our story, like how we had it laid out.
All right. Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate those insights and the frustrations. And as we start moving forward, talking about the science aspect of all of this, right? Sometimes those preconceived notions and preconceived ideas make it hard to be open to learn new things sometimes if you're kind of just like, nah, it has to be this way. And yet the evidence is showing maybe it's not, right? So, all right, that was Carlos. Thank you so much for sharing. All right, how about group 7? Another ideas from you guys. Anything else you noticed or wondered?
First, I want to say ours is like so bad, like the order of everything, just like judging from others.
Well, okay, so let me ask you this. Why does it make you feel bad to be different?
No, not that it makes you feel bad. It's just,
okay.
It doesn't make sense, like in the way it's ordered. You know what I mean?
So you think, what you've heard other people say so far makes you think they've provided convincing evidence to make you maybe rethink how yours was ordered?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then also, because I guess kind of putting like the story of the 3 little pigs and the Little Red Riding Hood together, I think our brains are kind of like too focused on that to kind of make sense of what was in front of us, if that makes sense.
Yes. All right. So you're stuck on kind of hung up again. So similar to the last group, hung up on, what you thought you knew instead of looking at the evidence that was.
Yeah.
All right. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And then group 8, last but not least for tonight, what are some other interesting tidbits you want to add to this conversation about that you noticed or wondered or?
We saw that many people added one of like the kitchen scenes towards the end.
Oh.
I guess many people, I don't know. We saw it as, I guess, because it's like the same pig, the pig getting kicked into the house with grandma. And then he's in like the kitchen, but we know it's like a different house.
Oh, how do you know it's a different house?
This house is blue and the other one is like in the kitchen, and we assumed it was different grandmas.
Oh, maybe different grandmas.
We know from prior knowledge that she's baking cookies to take for like her sick grandma. And they're obviously baking cookies there, so we always think it's for like another grandma.
So maybe they're 2 different people. And did anybody else notice that the room colors were different like this group? That's really interesting.
Yeah, and also the grandma, they're wearing different outfits, so we assumed they were different people.
Okay, interesting. So thank you so much for sharing, everybody. And it's kind of interesting to see all these different perspectives, right? And I would just say from like a teacher standpoint too, I find it very interesting to see how everybody organized things a little bit differently. Everybody pretty much went from top left to right and then down, kind of like you're reading a book. Sometimes there's been groups that kind of go up and down and left and right, and nobody knows how to read them unless they have arrows kind of showing what's happening. But that's the point. And you guys did so great trying to look at all these different pieces of evidence and, well, wrestling with the background knowledge and the evidence to try to put these into some semblance of an order here. So I guess my big question here is if we move forward here, what do you guys think the purpose of this whole exercise was? And what do you think maybe, what was the purpose of this, and how does it maybe relate to science and the geosciences, especially if you can think about that? So what does Little Red Riding Hood and these three pigs and everything we've just done, how is that similar to science, or how does it maybe relate?
Something that I was thinking while doing this is how we're using our prior knowledge and then new knowledge to try to like figure things out. So we're using the stories that we know in our head already, because that's what we're reminded of.
Okay.
But then we're also looking at like the details within the story that maybe isn't the story. So we're trying to like just combine the both of them to make something new.
Excellent. And so how were you guys going about doing that? All individually on your own, or did one person in your group dominate what was making up the things, or was it like a group decision? How did that work for everyone? So I guess let me ask another, and if you feel comfortable putting it in the chat too, you can totally chat if you don't want to speak. But so, how, when you're talking about making all this information, was it a lone individual effort, or was it more of a collaborative effort here?
Speaking on my group, I feel like it was more of a collaborative group, because we would say something and then another person would like bounce off the idea and be like, oh, you're right. And I also noticed this and that. So I feel like we just all kind of came in together, and if we didn't agree, we'd be like, oh, well, I see this. And then we would go based off of their story. So it'd be like, we were just bouncing off ideas, but obviously like everyone's mindset works differently. So I feel like that is why it's good to work with people, because you learn from others. So for example, when you show us a picture of like, I don't know, just any science related, obviously we're all going to think of it or see it differently, or it'll remind us of other things. So I feel like that is why it's good to like share what we see and what we experience, so other people can also like grasp from that.
All right, interesting. And I think that kind of nails it on the head here, is that this was definitely a collaborative effort, and everybody in your group was seeing something new and maybe seeing something slightly different. And maybe had you had enough time, you could have, individually seen these different things and come up with something similar. But it's kind of the more heads are better than one, right? You get to see things, collaborate, and then I like the description of being able to share ideas and figure out, which one made most sense. So somebody was presenting arguments, convincing arguments with that evidence, explaining why it should be in one place versus another place. All right. So you're totally right. That's what this is. There is no correct order. There is no actual right order to this. The whole thing was made to get people talking and to make stories out of nothing, right? Or out of a nothing burger, basically. But here's the thing is, if you all had 8 different storylines lined up, if I said our life depended on it, like we can't leave this class until 9 o'clock tonight or something, until, we all decide on a final story, do you think as a whole class, we could maybe support or come up with a final story that our whole entire class agrees on? Do you suppose we could do that? Not that we're going to do it, but do you think it's a possibility? Given enough time, like an hour or so, and said, hey, we can't leave until this is done. What do you suppose?
Maybe.
All right. So what types of things would need to happen? Oops, sorry, Carl. I'm just cutting out there a little bit. What things would need to happen in order to make that final group decision like palatable for everyone? How would you all come to this consensus? What would make it agreeable for most folks? What types of things would need to happen in between to make that final agreed upon story? Yeah, people would have to compromise. Oh man, that's a big one. And compromise based on what though?
I would say maybe that their idea isn't right, or like someone else's idea is a little better or makes more sense.
All right, and so how would one idea make more sense or seem a little bit better? What's the thing you need to make it like elevated as like I think this is the right idea? What's the thing you would need to make that happen?
Evidence.
Yeah, you got it. Evidence, right? So evidence, and you present the evidence and you make these claims, you make that evidence to support it, and then folks can compromise. And you could probably, I mean, I've been in groups of teachers, you know, trying professional developments and stuff, trying to compromise and come up with ideas, a consensus. And sometimes there's always going to be one person that's stuck on, nope, it's this way only. And no matter how much evidence you present, it's not going to be the right thing for them. But, right, if the majority or the consensus of that group says, hey, we all agree with this one version. I know you don't agree with yours. Your evidence isn't quite enough to sway the whole majority. Well, then, you know, that's how consensus is made, is they kind of leave out the one person that may not be super happy with that final version. But I 100% agree that we could probably come up with an agreed upon thing. And your class is different than my MJC classes, is different than, you know, every other class that I've ever had. But if we put each other in the same room over time, we could probably come up with a grand scheme and a grand story for this whole thing. So let me ask you this then. How does this maybe relate to science or the geosciences in a broader picture? How would this whole exercise kind of relate to all of that? Are you seeing a connection here? Hopefully we've put the breadcrumbs out for you, but let's articulate it and try to see what we think here. So how does this little red writing exercise, your small group, this discussion, how does this maybe relate to science in general?
Well, like, I'm gonna go off of how you were speaking about dinosaurs not too long ago, and we don't have like a real story. Like, we weren't there, but we have like little glimpses of, you know, we have like the fossils, and then with like the group, I feel like, well, you're working with other paleontologists, or, you know, you're working with other science people, so I feel like that would tie into this, that we're trying to piece together, like, okay, how did the dinosaurs go extinct, or where did they come from, where were they at? So I think it's like kind of like that. We don't have the real story because we weren't there, but we have a lot of facts.
So we have evidence, all right, and so the paleontologists have evidence. So how do you suppose they come to an agreed upon idea of, you know, what those hadrosaurs or those dinosaurs were doing? And somebody says, oh, because there's no real answer, it's educated guesses with evidence. All right, I like that interpretation, and I kind of like the dinosaur stuff. And so, yeah, our answer is the best answer possible, right, with more evidence. And the more and more evidence we gather, the more we can fill in those blanks and make those ideas kind of more bulletproof, right? They're much more, yeah, they eventually become theories if you can test them over and over again, right? They can be theories, but a lot of the things in the geosciences that we deal with, we can't necessarily test them because we weren't back in time. We weren't in these other places. So we have to use other versions of science that, you know, maybe we can't recreate some of these things in a lab, but we can use this observational evidence to piece together these things and figure out what in the heck is going on. And, you know, it is based on group consensus here. Is experts in the field take that evidence, they take those ideas, and they run with that. And if there's new information that's presented, that kind of like you guys saw a different color of house in the little pigs, maybe if somebody finds a new piece of evidence somewhere else, it could change the story, right? And that happens. But for the most part, you know, in the geosciences, we are learning so much, and have learned so much, especially in the last 100 years, that we have a very good understanding of how a lot of these different things work. It's now kind of the nuts and the bolts of things that are changing over time. That's pretty interesting. So yeah, it's exactly right. And just like how you did it, the more voices, the merrier, right? The more input you have, the more folks talking about it, the fresher eyes you have on it, it's going to lead to much more diverse opinions and diverse consensus. And when you have a diverse consensus, you are going to have something that is much stronger scientifically, because we have all these different knowledge bases that are going into it. All righty. So here's the last quick little thing here. And we're kind of running a little low. You guys have had great conversations and things like that. So I think we're just going to try to push through this really fast, if you don't mind. And then we'll call it quits for the evening here. But basically, what I want you all to do is I'm going to share my screen, and actually I'll give you, hold on here. Let me see. I'll share this. I'll give you the document too if you want, and copy that and paste that. If you want to hop on there, you can, or I'll just leave it on here. I'll zoom in so you guys can see it a little bit better. Let me do my zoom. Got too many boxes open here. There we go. All righty. So I'm going to read this first part to you a little bit about science and prior knowledge and identifying data and inferences and things like this. All right. So I'm going to read this first part to you. It's kind of background knowledge. Then I'm going to give you a second to read this one on your own. And we'll talk about it briefly, and then I'll show you how to do your sketch notes, and we'll move on from there. All righty. So in science, we claim to know, what we claim to know is dependent on a whole bunch of these different networks of connections between what we observe and what we think we already know, right? So that's exactly what you guys are doing with that little Red Riding Hood. You were observing, but you had all that stuff you thought you knew about it that was kind of jumbling those connections. So these connections between observations and ideas exist at a variety of levels that we are only partly conscious of as we think and as we reason. So learning to trace those connections and identify those often unconscious ideas will help us understand which knowledge is sound, which knowledge is questionable, and which knowledge is clearly false. So as we work to learn about knowledge in this sense, it'll help us further understand the nature of science itself, an activity devoted to making sense out of events in the natural world that often seem unrelated and confusing. And sorry, I have like a low-flying airplane that was making noise. So making claims about what we know, these are what we call knowledge claims, as described above, is rarely straightforward, especially in science. So you will use your understanding of data, inferences, and prior knowledge really quickly to briefly analyze a section of this popular science writing from David Attenborough. He's still alive. He's the old British guy that does a lot of the nature documentaries, like, and the walrus slides off the iceberg, you know, that guy. Just a really cool naturalist, been around forever on PBS and all those things. But he's also a very awesome writer. And what we're going to take a look at here is, you're going to read this paragraph just to yourselves here. Take like 2 or 3 minutes to read that. And what you're going to be looking for is pieces of data in this paragraph. So data is anything that can be sensed directly. We always think of it as like numbers and tables and, you know, quantity. It can be, but data is also observations from the natural world. So what is the data there? The prior knowledge and beliefs, that's that background information we come to the table with. And then the inferences then are the conclusions drawn from what we see or what we observe or what we think the data tells us. And that goes back to when somebody earlier was saying, oh, we think grandma looks friendly. Well, you know, how did you know? Well, they're making that inference based on the data of her smiling or, you know, having wide eyes or bright eyes or something like that. So that's kind of what we're taking a look at. So take a few quick seconds here, take like 3 minutes or 4 minutes, whatever, and go through here. And I want you to think, what are some pieces of data that you see in here? What is some maybe prior knowledge that was used to help them identify some of the things they're talking about? And maybe what are some inferences they may have come to? All right, so I'll be quiet for just a minute here, and do yourself a favor and just read this little paragraph and think about that. What's some data? What would be prior knowledge, and what would be inferences here? And when you're done reading, you just put like a little thumbs up or good to go in the chat or something. So maybe another minute or so. All right, and I will put a picture of this place in just a minute here. But what I'd like to do in like the next 2 or 3 minutes here, what are some examples in this little paragraph of data? So, right, this is a whole story based on something where nobody was there when it happened. So how can we possibly know that this is the story that was going on? So what was some of the data that they were using to kind of support their evidence here? What were some of the things that they found or described? You can chat it, you can say it, I don't mind.
All the long bones and then how they listed them, like
Yes.
the limbs and the sections of the backbone.
Yeah, definitely. The types of skeletons, how many there were. How about were there some other data there that I see things? I definitely see 4 meters thick, like this, the layer of stone was like, yeah, the thickness of the stone is definitely some data. Right, the way the limbs and stuff were arranged, definitely. So that's kind of the data, the number or types of the sizes of the skeletons that help determine the different types of dinosaurs that were there for sure, right? So the inferences then, the inferences are all of this crazy story here. It's not crazy, but it kind of happened. But these giant rotting skeletons maybe floating down a river and getting stuck on a riverbank or something. And we'll learn how we know this evidence a little bit later on. But these are inferences being made based on the clues that are around there. So, you know, how do we know if they says some of these smaller dinosaurs came to feast on carrion is like dead, rotting animals and stuff? What would be some evidence do you suppose that paleontologists might have to show that maybe a smaller dinosaur was chewing on these other dinosaurs? Like what would be preserved that gives them that idea?
Maybe on the other dinosaurs, like their teeth or their mouth.
Yeah, like teeth mark. Yeah, you got it. So I saw teeth and like maybe teeth marks, and you know maybe the spacing of the teeth shows it came from a smaller dinosaur or something. 100%, you got that. So you know that's using the evidence to support this kind of claim or these inferences that are being drawn. And since all of these are in a certain area, like we're making this prior background assumption that dinosaurs probably just don't hang around in big herds. That's one of the assumptions they made for the most part. But why would you get a big different, you know, grouping of different dinosaur types all in one area? Well, one way to do that is what we've seen in modern floods is if we have cows or cattle or something like that experience a flood, or chickens and goats, if they get washed away in kind of a flood event, they all, they die in the flood, and then they get deposited when the water stops all at the same area. And then maybe you have sand and other things mixed in there. So people can use their background knowledge of seeing those type of events to help describe things that have happened in the past. All right. So it's a pretty interesting, cool spot, this Dinosaur National Park here. And believe it or not, this is the wall he's talking about in Dinosaur National Park. It's a national park now. It used to be a monument. And there's me with a Camarasaurus thigh bone. So that's a thigh bone basically right there when I was 8 or 9 or something like that. But that's what they're talking about. And there's just bones everywhere in here that you can take a look at and see. And if you excavate them, those are the stories you can start telling. Those rocks tell a huge, important story. So to end, and then, oops, sorry, somebody just chatted, sorry. Yeah, it's awesome. It's in Utah. You can get there in a day if you wanted to. That was the first trip that was canceled in COVID, that March of 2020. Dang, that would have been a good one with my kid. But anyways, so let me share with you kind of what this consensus of understanding means in a scientific way. All right. It can be achieved by this consensus, this idea, these agreed upon ideas happen at conferences where scientists are in constant communication with one another, or publishing in scientific journals and showing the data and then rebutting the data, or things like that, so the scientific publication and peer review is a huge process. Sometimes if you can repeat those experiments or something like that, that also helps consensus happen. Or if you make a model and the model keeps predicting things correctly, that's a really good way of doing it. Scholarly debates, talking nicely to one another, but debating the ideas about why they think this is right or why this other thing is right. Like I said earlier, peer review. And then the big, huge one that is finally, being recognized in the Western society way too late, basically, is indigenous knowledge. Indigenous peoples have been in North America and lots of the earth here since time immemorial. And, in North America, age-wise, that goes back at least 20,000 years, we know, in North America. And so there's a huge treasure trove of indigenous knowledge of how things work. And that is a type of scientific understanding as well. And so, people are doing a much better understanding of respecting, finally, other people's viewpoints and helping them bring it in so that we can learn from each other's viewpoints to make a stronger consensus understanding. And so the parting thought I'll leave you with tonight is, can a true consensus be reached without diverse representation in the scientific process, right? So imagine if our conversations, were just not as many people, or not from, they were all from Turlock, versus imagine what would happen if we had people from Chicago and, Paris and, who knows, Buenos Aires or something like that. Think of all the different ideas that would go into it and maybe make some of those stories a little bit different here. So for your sketch notes tonight, the first thing you're going to turn in eventually, right? And by the way, you can now turn it in on the sketch notes. But basically the first thing, that template that I was trying to show, here it is. We talked about the ordering activity. So make a few drawings to show what it was like to have to work collaboratively in your group. What did you notice? What did you wonder about some of these things? What was the purpose of putting those cartoons in order, right? So I was looking at the scientific consensus and having fun like that, and learning about supporting evidence, arguments from evidence, things like that. And then briefly, what we just did, that's your data, prior knowledge, and inferences. So if you can take those little definitions right here, kind of put these into your own words, and then maybe draw a little picture that makes you think of these things. That's what I'm asking for with these. And then it also says some models or sketches of examples from Attenborough's writing. So, this is the dinosaur stuff that he was writing about. So what was an example of the prior knowledge or an example of inferences that you can, just sketch, draw, something like that on there. But all you need is making sure you have colors and picture and text with this, and you'll be good to go. And then the last three is, how do data, prior knowledge, and inferences influence our understanding of the world? This is kind of your own digestion of what we talked about tonight. How does consensus understanding work? And then, why is diverse representation important in science? So that's what we're going to be doing. I apologize, we kind of ran through another little break, but you guys did awesome and we're so engaged, and I really appreciate it. So the last thing I'd like to do is give you one other Jamboard. It's the Sunshines and Blues. And basically the way this works, copy the link here, I'll give you the link in there. And if you click on that link, we're on week 1. Yep. Okay. So basically the Sunshines and Blues, you just add a yellow sticky note with something that was good for the class. And if you don't have anything that was good, you can just put none. It's a data point for me. And then the blues are anything that didn't go so well for you in the class or things that you'd like to see changed. So you can just put, and if you don't have a blue, you can just put none or nothing or something like that. And let me make sure you guys can edit this. Yep. Okay. So, and once you do that, you're free to go, and you can go even without saying that as well. But thank you for being here and spending your Friday with me. And I think we're gonna have a great time this semester. Keep up all this good stuff. And I can't wait to see you all in person eventually as well. So here's your Sunshines and Blues, just anything that went well, anything that sucked, put it on there, and it's anonymous. So like, I don't know who does it, and we'll go from there. All righty. So I'll see you all later next Friday. I hope you have a great weekend. I hope you stay safe. It's going to be dry. No rain probably through the middle of February. So just some things to think about. All right. Enjoy the warmth while we got it. And I'll see y'all later. And I'll stick around too. I'm going to stop the recording and stop the sharing, but I will stick around if anybody has any questions or anything.